1891, at the Reichenbach Falls, near Meiringen, in Switzerland, Sherlock Holmes finally closed his... It was obvious to a trained observer. Holmes had achieved the destruction of his arch-enemy, my old friend. I never walked down Baker Street, where we shared rooms for so many eventful years, without it reminding me only too keenly of the past, and the loss of one I shall ever regard as the best and wisest man I have ever known. Keen interest in criminal matters, and supplemented my meager practice by working as a police surgeon. It was in the early spring of 1894 that I was called out early in the morning to an appointment in the West End.
Morning, Constable. Morning, Doctor. Inspector Lestrade is waiting for you, first floor, sir.
Thank you. Inspector?
Ah, early call, I'm afraid, Doctor. I'm glad to see you. The Honourable Ronald Adair. Oh, not there, sir, if you please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Earl and Countess of Maynooth. Father, governor of one of the Australian colonies. Mother in London for the winter. Son and daughter living in this house with her.
Suicide?
Oh, no. No weapon. Oh, this was found on the floor beside the corpse.
That's one of those soft-nosed revolver bullets. Horrible things.
Yes.
Must have gone right through the poor fellow's head.
No. It's early days yet, but this one looks to me as if it could turn out to be a bit of a puzzle.
Well, presumably he was, sitting in that chair.
I suppose counting that...
Time for one last time.
Oh, yes, indeed. Now we can get our revenge.
Thank you.
Ronald? Ronald? I suppose Ronald couldn't have gone out again.
No, my lady. I heard him come home at about 10:30. And he hasn't gone out again. Of that I'm sure. Mr. Ronald. Mr. Ronald, sir. Let's break it down, my lady.
I wouldn't like to climb up here at night. Must have been a monk.
Well, this sort of case sort of interested our old friend, Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
Yes, indeed.
What a loss he is.
All right, Inspector, if you arrange for our friend to be brought round to the mortuary, I'll conduct an autopsy this afternoon.
Yes, indeed, Doctor. Well, see you at the inquest.
Till then.
Der mystery lightest. Der mystery lightest.
Doctor, you examined the deceased, Ronald Francis Adair, who is the...
From a .45 revolver.
Dr. Watson, I beg you to keep to fact. My business is to establish the facts of this case. That is pure speculation on your part. It is not your business to start guessing at the type of weapon used. That is a subject for the police.
Lead bullet. The bullet penetrated the skull above the left eye, traversed...
Opinion, when did death take place?
Well, it would have been instantaneous.
Have you any idea how far this bullet had travelled before it entered the body?
I cannot be sure, but it would certainly be more than 4...
Ronald Adair and I were in the Harrow 11 together. He was a first-class bat. Pretty effective leg spinner.
A good sportsman, in fact. Mr. Murray. Sir John Hardy.
I was Ronald Adair's godfather and a trustee of the estate. Up for the Bagatelle Club, as a matter of fact. He always enjoyed the game of cards.
Win or lose. Would that affect Mr. Adair in any way, Sir John?
Good Lord, no. Not in the least. He never played...
Thank you, Sir John. You have been a great help. And may I say, you were the last person known to have seen Mr. Adair. Did you know him well?
No, I wouldn't say that I knew Ronald Adair well. Knew his father, Lord... at our clubs over the past few months. We played cards together from time to time. Oh, charming boy. Good manners, intelligent. Matter of fact, he's just the stamp of young fellow I'd like to see joining my old regiment.
Did you notice anything unusual about him? Did he seem worried or upset on the last evening you saw him?
Not in the least.
Trade, would you give me your opinion as to the cause of the Honourable Ronald Adair's death?
Yes, sir. Willful murder by person or persons unknown.
Willful murder.
They're not drinking now.
Luke's Grove, Kensington, if he's carried.
I don't know, Doctor.
Well, did he give you his card?
No, Doctor.
Ivy, if I've told you once, I've told you 100 times, my consulting hours are plainly displayed outside. Now, please.
Oh, sir.
Dr. Watson,
Yes, indeed, sir. You may go, Ivy. I am exceeding...
Gentlemen, I have a conscience. And tell him that if I was a little gruff in my manner, I meant no harm by it, and I'm much obliged to him for helping me pick up my books.
You make too much of a trifle, sir. You should have spared yourself the journey. Now, if you'll excuse me...
No great journey, sir. I am a neighbour of yours. You will find my little bookshop on the corner of Church Street. May I sit down? Very happy to see you. I'm sure, Doctor. Perhaps... You collect? I have the British...
Watson, do you mind if I smoke a cigarette in your consulting room? A thousand apologies, my dear Watson. I had no idea that you'd be so affected.
Is it really you? Can it really be that you're alive?
But are you really fit enough to discuss things? I've given you a serious shock.
Well, you're not a spirit at least, my dear chap. I'm overjoyed to see you. Sit down, sit down. And tell me how you came alive. Out of that awful chasm.
Oh, I'm glad to stretch myself. It's no joke when a tall man has to take a foot off his stature for several hours on end. Oh. This is just like the old days. You might have a chance for a mouthful of dinner before we leave go.
Dinner, of course, but first, you must tell me everything.
You sure you're all right?
I'm fine.
Well, then. About that chasm. I had no serious difficulty in getting out of it for the simple reason that I was never in it, genuinely. I had little doubt. I read an inexorable purpose in his grey eyes.
It has remained my most treasured possession.
It was a few months later that I read...
But what did really happen?
When I reached the ledge, I stood at bay. He drew no weapon, but...
My God. But how did you get away from that place?
It was not a pleasant business. Placed in my way. I knew that at least One of Moriarty's henchmen would seek my demise now, with even keener determination to revenge their dead leader. But if I could convince the world that I too was dead. So I decided to disappear. Then and there.
Heavens above. But the tracks, Holmes. I saw them with my own eyes. 2 went down the path and none returned.
I'm not a fanciful person, Watson. But I give you my word, there were his voice, screaming at me from out of the abyss. At last I reached a place where I was able to remain unseen. From my concealed place, I watched you and your followers investigating in the most sympathetic and inefficient manner the circumstances of my death. At last, when you had all formed your inevitable but totally erroneous conclusions, you departed. Been alone. A confederate. From a distance had been witness to his friend's demise and my escape. I did not take long to think about it, Watson. I took to my heels and covered 10 miles over the mountains in the pending darkness. Confidant. My brother Mycroft. I had to confide in him in order to obtain the money I needed to live.
Of course.
I owe you many apologies, my dear Watson. But it was all important that it should be thought I was dead. And it is quite certain that you would not have written so convincing an account of my unhappy end had you yourself not... But you have a kinder heart.
But what have you done all these long years?
Well, you may have read of the remarkable explorations of a Norwegian called Sigurdsson. But I'm sure it never occurred to you that you were receiving news of your friend. For 2 years, I traveled to Tibet and amused myself by visiting Lhasa and spending some time with the head lama. I then moved to Persia and paid a short but interesting visit to the Khalifa in Khartoum, the results of which I passed on to Lord Kitchener in the Foreign Office, anonymously, of course. His blood still upon the staircase. Lately, I've been in France, in Montpellier, researching into the coal tar derivatives. Then came the news of this remarkable murder, which not only appealed to me by its own merits, but which seemed to offer some most peculiar personal opportunities. So here I am. Mycroft had preserved my rooms and my papers exactly as they had always been. Watson sitting in the other chair, which he has so often adorned.
And so I hope I will be. What?
Revolver.
Well, I think I have it somewhere.
See that you bring it with you tonight. Justify a man's life on this planet.
I beg you to tell me about it.
You will see and hear enough before morning. Watson, may I occupy your couch for a few hours? The sea was exceedingly rough during the Channel crossing, and the prospect of seeing London again and an imminent encounter with... No, this will suit me very well. I've had harder beds than this in the past few years. Let us see whether 3 years of absence have entirely taken away my power to surprise you.
Good heavens. It's marvelous.
I trust that age does not wither our accustomed stale, my infinite... I knew they were being watched.
By whom?
By the one remaining member of that charming society whose leader lies in the Reichenbach Falls. Sooner or later, he believed that I would come back to my room, so he had them watched continuously.
Now I understand the reason for the old bookseller.
I cannot judge about Parker, but I cared a great deal about the much more formidable person who was behind him. The bosom friend of Moriarty. Also the man who is totally unaware that we are after him.
Holmes!
Mr. Holmes!
Lestrade, how nice to see you.
So it really is you. I had your message. I could scarce believe it.
You seem to want some unofficial help. 3 undetected murders in 1 year won't do, you know.
Holmes, I know this man.
Of course you do, Watson. So does the inspector. Colonel produced. I believe I'm correct, Colonel, in saying that your bag of tigers still remains unrivaled. I wonder that my simple stratagem could deceive so old a shikari. How many times have you not tethered a young kid under a tree? Your house is my tree, and you're my tiger! The parallel is
Objected to the jibes of this person. If I am in the hands of the law, let things be done in a legal way.
Well, that sounds reasonable. Anything further to say before we go?
Only to ask what charge you intend to prefer.
What charge, sir? Well, of course, the attempted murder of Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
Not so, Lestrade. To you, and you only, belongs the credit of this remarkable arrest. With your usual mixture of cunning and audacity, you have got him.
I don't understand you, Mr. Holmes. Do you mean this man?
Of last month. That is your charge, Lestrade.
You were quite the heroine of the occasion, Mrs. Holmes.
I don't know, I'm sure, sir.
I hope you observed all precautions.
Oh, yes, sir. I went with on my knees, just exactly as you told me. And a good crick in my back to prove it. Oh, I wasn't half frightened, Doctor. And when that window shattered, I thought I should have died.
Yes, you did it very well, Mrs. Hudson. There's no sign of the bullet.
Oh, excuse me, sir. I have it here. I picked it up off the carpet.
Mrs. Hudson, you are becoming indispensable. A soft revolver. Thing to be fired from an air gun.
It's no ordinary air gun.
No, indeed, a remarkable and unique weapon. Noiseless and of tremendous power. I knew Van Herder, the blind German mechanic, who constructed it to the order of the late Professor James Moriarty. Ha! Watson, look at this. The old shikari's nerves had not long before Adair's murder.
No, I had not.
Well, such is the price of fame. Would you be so kind as to hand me down my L to M index of biographies, Watson? My list of M's is a fine one. Mind you, Moriarty's name is enough to make any letter illustrious. I seem to remember Morgan, the poisoner. Merridew of abominable memory. And there was Matthews, who knocked out my left canine in Charing Cross Station. There is our friend of last night.
Moran, Sebastian, Colonel, son of Sir Augustus Moran, once British Minister to Persia, educated at Eton, Oxford, blah, 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 blah. Served in Jawaki campaign, Afghan campaign, Sherpa Col, mentioned in dispatches. The second most dangerous man
in humans. Whatever the cause, Moran began to go wrong. Without an open scandal, he still made India too hot to hold him. He retired, came back to London, where again he acquired an evil name. It was about this time that he was sought out by Professor Moriarty. When we were in Switzerland, Watson, Moran followed us with Moriarty, and it was undoubtedly he who gave me those evil 5 minutes above the Reichenbach Falls.
Well, now I can understand why you disappeared. With a fellow like this free in London, your life would not have been worth living.
All I could do was wait and watch the criminal news, knowing that if I was patient, sooner or later he would make a mistake. When I heard of the murder of Ronald Adair, I knew that at last my chance had come. Knowing what I did, was it not certain that Colonel Moran had done it? He played cards with the lad, followed him home from his club, and shot him through the open window from the rooftop opposite. Watson, does anything else remain for me to explain?
Yes. You have not made clear what was Moran's motive in murdering the Honourable Ronald Adair.
There we move into the realms of conjecture. Each may form his own hypothesis upon the present.
I think so.
Let me hear.
Well, it's not difficult to explain the facts. Very likely he spoke to him privately and threatened to expose him, Moran, unless he voluntarily resigned membership of his club and promised not to play again.
Watson, this is excellent.
Exclusion from his club would mean ruin to Moran, who lived by his ill-gotten card gains. Therefore, he murdered Adair. Will it pass?
I think, without doubt, that you have hit upon the truth. Anyway, it'll be verified or disproved at the trial. Meanwhile, come what may, Colonel Moran will... Come in.
Once again, Mr. Sherlock Holmes is free to devote his life to examining those interesting little problems which the complex life of London so plentifully presents. Mr. Sherlock Holmes.